Hi everybody, I'm Marsha. Thank you so much for coming back to my channel. In this video, I'm going to share how I got a full stack software engineering job in the worst market. So in 2024, it took me 3 months to land this role. I think from just like starting, looking around sort of and entertaining LinkedIn messages to actually getting an offer. So for a little bit of backstory, and I will link the original video, I broke into tech from agriculture. So I do not have a background in coding. I didn't go and get a four-year degree in this. I actually have a degree in crop, soil science, and environmental studies. And I was an agronomist prior to becoming a software engineer. And 2.5 years ago, I decided I wanted to change, and I picked up a laptop and I actually used YouTube to help myself learn. And then 4.5 months later, I had a portfolio and I decided to just go give it a shot. And that is what led me to here. So yeah, a little bit of backstory. I'm mostly back end. So in my first role, I'm a back end Python developer, and I work mostly with like SQL, Python, and then for front end, sometimes I touch a little bit of Django, but that is what I have. And yeah, so that was back in 2022, and I see a lot of content, and the main motivation for me making this video is because I hear a lot of people saying like it's impossible to get a job, and that nobody should pursue software engineering or anything in tech because of how hard it is. And I wanted to make this video to prove that it is definitely possible. You still don't need a degree in this, and if you strategize correctly, and that's the other reason I wanted to make this video. I've gotten a lot of messages from people asking, well, what did you do differently to get people's attention because of the rise of like ghost jobs and all this crap that's going on in the job market. So that's why I decided to go on ahead and create this. Frequently asked questions that I get a lot is like, how did you find these jobs? So LinkedIn, I do well on Indeed, weirdly, and that's mainly the two platforms that I use, and Wellfound. Wellfound's the third one too. And so I learned from being in the program 100 Devs to not click apply. So full transparency, the first job I ever got, I just clicked apply on Indeed. It was local, so just keep that in the back of your brain. And I got the job. And I think a lot of the reasons why I got the job was they had preference to somebody that was local, and I was a local person. And so this time around, I kind of did the same thing. I still used LinkedIn, I still used Indeed, and then of course I used Wellfound too. But instead of clicking apply, I would find whoever the hiring manager was, and I would just go on ahead and direct message them. So like if I was on LinkedIn and I saw like John Smith was the hiring manager or the CTO, I'd just drop like a quick line like, hi John, I saw that you have the full stack software engineering role posted. I'm a full stack developer with years of experience in healthcare tech, and I would love to take 5 minutes to chat with you about open roles that you have. So it was just short, sweet. Honestly, I had the same template, copy pasted it to any kind of job that I was just remotely interested in. And Indeed was a little bit trickier. It was kind of like harder to find it, but I mean, with a couple of quick Google searches, you could kind of figure out like, oh, Jane's the person that's the CTO, or is the HR person, and I would just shoot off an email. And I use stuff like Hunter.io or just straight up Google to find this stuff. I mean, it's not that hard. I feel like nowadays, like if you're looking for people in a company, you can easily find their email and information. So I would do that, and I found out I would get way more traction doing this. Like my resume would just get like pushed to the top, and most of the time they would just tell me, hey, go on ahead onto our website and apply, or I would really like to see a resume, and I would just do that and then be on my way. And sometimes if I really liked it, I would apply and message, but most of the time I would just DM first and then see where it went. I feel like that helped kind of like eliminate like the crap if that makes any sense, or like the jobs that were like ghost jobs, or it just helped me cut through the fake news. So that's what I did differently, was definitely not clicking apply, reaching out to people, and using, I guess the term would be like networking my way in. I didn't actually use my own personal network, so I do attend meetups and I'm part of a lot of Discord groups, but I didn't really leverage that because I actually liked where I was at. I just was like curious about like what was out there. So yeah, but I'm also glad I did it. The other reason, motivator, was I just wanted to like sharpen my skills. I haven't been like in the interviewing like ring, if that makes any sense, for like 2 years, and I wanted to make sure that I was still on top of my technical coding skills, stuff like that. Which leads me to the next part. I got asked how was the job interview process as a full stack engineer, especially in 2024. Yes, technical interviewing is still important, and I'm so glad that every day I try and force myself to do a Code Wars or Elite Code, at least one of those once a day, and I also make myself commit those into memory by using like Anki flashcards decks. So yeah, like every day I will solve a new one, I'll put it in the deck, and then I'll go through the deck too and make sure that I have everything memorized. So I'm so glad I did that work for the past, like, now it's been like 2.5 years that I've been doing this little ritual every day, that a lot of the times when I would get faced with a coding question, even if I didn't 100% know it, it would kind of look like something that I've seen before, and because I had it memorized, there wasn't a lot of like brain power to go in and go on ahead and solve the thing that was in front of me. So I highly recommend this hack. So not just doing the Code Wars and the Elite Code daily, I still think that's important, but also be committing them to memory. I highly recommend Anki. I pay for it. Like it's just as good on the free version, but I pay for it, so I have it on my cell phone, I have it on my iPad, and literally what I do is like when I'm bored and I'm trying to reduce my screen time, or so this is me getting a little vulnerable here. I am a social media addict, so instead of like social media, I force myself instead to open up my Anki flashcards, and I'll go through a Code Wars or Elite Code problem, and I usually write it on scratch paper, or I use my iPad and write it like on GoodNotes. I force myself to handwrite, so then that way I'm not dependent on like an IDE, or if I'm ever put in a situation where they don't give me like some nice like sandbox tool to like code on, that I'm good. So yes. And then another thing that I did differently too when it came to like technical coding, I don't know if you guys have ever, and I'm gonna write this book down too. I highly recommend the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, Negotiating Like Your Life Depends on It. It's an interesting concept, but it kind of works. And I've also read some psychology books that, and I've read also some like sales books too, just books on sales that, if you ask your interviewer the right questions, they sort of give you hints, whether they intend to or not. And also I just feel like, in a technical interview, if you show that you're human, I mean, for the most part, people want to help other people out, at least people that I want to go work with. They want to help other people out. And overall, like when I had like a good, like just a person that had that nice, like had the same mentality that I was going for, they would give me a hint. Like, even if I needed it or not, they would sort of tell me, yeah, that loop looks correct. Or, no, Marsha, like, you made a mistake there. You should say min instead of max. Like, I had that happen a couple of times. And just being more conversational, I think that's what I really did different this time around, was really focus on the conversation, focus on the questions I was asking, and less on the code. And I think that made a better experience for me. But once again, I think my strongest thing going into technical interviews was that I've got like 500 of these problems memorized just from doing Anki. And I think, yeah, it just, it gave me a lot of confidence to know that I have a bunch of stuff memorized, and for the most part, like, because of all the things I had memorized, even if it wasn't exactly a problem that I've seen before, I'd still be able to figure it out because I've seen multiple others that looked kind of like it. So yeah, and then I did get lucky a few times where like I would see the problem, I'm like, oh, I've definitely done this like before, and I do know the answer. Obviously, I'd play it cool, like I wouldn't just like go ahead and like solve it, like make it look like I memorized it. I would still do the exercise of asking the right questions and just making sure, because sometimes the interviewer might change like one small thing about the problem that wasn't what I memorized. So yeah, so so I think I just covered what? I covered what I did differently to apply to get my foot in the door. What I did slightly differently, but I feel like most people kind of have the same approach for technical interviews. And then third, so once again, disclaimer, this is my second like job in tech, and I also had a job this whole time. Like it wasn't like I was unemployed or something. So keep this in the back of your brain. But I held boundaries, and I had some very strong boundaries going into this interview season. And the boundaries that I had were no sharing references. I don't know, maybe it's just me, but I get asked to give references all the time. I have no idea why I attract jobs that do that, but no giving references until like I made it to the very end of like the job interview process, or at least had a verbal offer. Like that is a hard line that I kept, and here's why. My contacts, especially like old managers and stuff, I have got a lot of respect for them, and like they're actively working, and I just don't want to share their personal phone number, because like what I'm giving to them is a personal phone number, and yeah, that just made me very uncomfortable to be just sharing like their name, personal stuff with a random stranger. So that's why. And also, I also use this boundary to gauge how serious they actually are with me. And I haven't had this backfire on me yet, but if it does, then I'd be okay, honestly. Like even in the future, if it backfired on me, because that means I don't want to go work with somebody that's persistent and doesn't want to respect my boundary. And I want to make it clear, I never said no to these people. It's just I said, hey, I'll give it to you, but after we get done with the whole interview process, or we're at the verbal offer stage. So yeah, I held that boundary really hard. Other boundaries I held was if they gave me a take-home assignment that took more than 30 minutes, like I think an appropriate interview time is like 30 to like 45, maybe an hour. I guess it depends on the organization. And if they gave me a take-home assessment that was like way past 30 minutes, I'd just say no. Like I would just write a quick message saying, hey, thanks for considering me, but I'm withdrawing my application, and I'd just leave it at that. So, and here's why. I've freelanced in the past, and like doing work, it costs money, and I just think it's a little sketch and like trying to get free labor out of me if I do a bunch of like take-home assessments that are on their code base or helping them with a task. Like no, it's like in that case then like let's set up a contracting deal and I invoice you. Like yeah, so that's my thing with that. The other hard boundary that I had was if it was like a weird like robot simulation technical interview, like I think I had one where it was like HackerRank or whatever, and like you'd go in and there was no human watching you. It's just like you'd have to keep submitting until you got it right. I would just stop it. Like literally I would just stop the technical interview. I'd cancel out of it, and then I'd just write a quick email, same thing, saying, hey, I'd like to withdraw, and here's why. I think those are like really lazy, or it's really telling to me that they're very lazy about their hiring process, and that's a red flag for me. I don't like that. I want to talk with the hiring manager, or potentially like my manager, and I want to see how they react when I ask them questions. Are they going to be supportive of me? Are they going to be very judgy if I ask stuff? So that's why hard now. If I ran into like something like that weird HackerRank thing that I did, I just stop and not want to do it anymore. So that was my other boundary, and yeah, I think that was mainly it. The other hard boundary I had was if it wasn't in the pay range or didn't have certain benefits with it, like it had to be like at least health. You know, I live in America, so health insurance is very important, and I needed to make sure that they were in a certain pay range for me, and if they weren't, I would just pass on them. I made it a habit now whenever I was talking, especially with an HR rep, like what is the pay range, and I wasn't afraid to ask for it, because if it just wasn't, then there's no reason to waste people's time, and I held that boundary too, because yeah, you don't want to be resentful of these people. Like after, like let's just say I did get like the job with them, and then I'd be resentful like a couple months later that like it wasn't where I wanted. So I made sure that I like held really strong to that. So yeah, I hope this is helpful. I think this is like the main questions that I got asked recently about landing this role, and yeah, those are my main answers. We can go into more depth about like interviewing techniques or like how to ask the right questions if that's something that interests you guys. But yeah, I think for the most part, I used the same kind of platforms to go find a job that most people do for software engineering. And then I think the big things that I kind of did that were a little bit different was not clicking apply, just straight up direct messaging people. And I will share all my templates below too. I wrote like a Medium article on this, so you guys have full access to it. And yeah, I guess the only other question I could really think of is the negotiations. So I negotiated, and I'm gonna drop my script there too. I now found out like no matter what, like I'm always gonna negotiate, and it's just always gonna be like a flat 20 to 25%, like depending on like if they offer sign-on bonuses or whatever, where I just ask, hey, can you get me close to X number? And I always use this phrase that, which once again, I stole from 100 Devs, Leon Noel. Is there any wiggle room to get me to X number? And can you get me close? And I just leave it at that. And for the most part, like I've never really had like negative feedback. Like sometimes they'll be like, hey, we can't get to that number. Actually, I've never really had a situation where they actually get to that number. They usually just go, hey, we can get you very close, or like I'll throw you an extra like $5,000 or something, or we can talk about something else. And yeah, I've never really had a negative interaction when it comes to that. And if I ever did, then I wouldn't want to go work for them. And yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, I think that does it. I'm trying to think of anything else that might have come up or questions that I get asked about this time interviewing. Okay. Oh, I do want to address something that's going on around like social media. Like if you go onto like TikTok, Twitter, or X or whatever have you, everybody's always like has this doom and gloom like glasses on where they're like, it's the worst market. And I know I titled this thing as like I got it in the worst market, but that was mainly just to get people to watch this video. But it's not. I wish people wouldn't say it's the worst market, because I really don't think it is, honestly. I think and also to have that mindset means like you don't have control. And I get it. Some of you guys can like argue with me that free will doesn't exist or whatever, which technically you're right, but I like to believe, and I think it's so important to have the mental like mindset that you do have control. And whether it was true or not, this whole time when I was going through this, I kept saying to myself, like there was this like stock ticker going through my brain that said, I am beating off these recruiters and companies with a stick because I'm in that high demand. Whether it was true or not, like I would get up every morning and be like, these companies just are DMing me, these recruiters, they're all up in my DMs, and gosh, it is so hard for me to pick something that's gonna work for me. Whether it was true or not, I just had that mentality, had that mindset, and yeah, it worked out in the end. And I think a lot of this, it does have to do with mentality. Obviously, you still got to put in work. Like I still was doing my code wars every day. I was still writing the DMs like while I was like watching Netflix. That's what I would do. And so you got to put in the work, but you got to believe in yourself. I think a lot of people that I hear that are on the job hunt, I think the thing that stops them is mainly them. Like they'll snitch on themselves or not be confident. But when you're going through the interview process, you just got to have that confidence that, um, like, these companies, they're lucky to have you in their presence, not you feel lucky that they're letting you there. No, like I always had that mentality of like, no matter what happens, like they are lucky that they even got a shot to have like a 30-minute conversation with me. So yeah, I guess that's my final note is that if you believe you've got control over your situation and that you set yourself up in the best way possible, you can totally land a job, even in the worst market. So yeah, I'm so proud of everyone. If you are like right now in the job process right now, I just want to let you know that if nobody's told you this, that I'm so proud of you and you are making the right steps. And at the end of the day, it's what's best for you, what's best for you and your family, and how to get like food on the table or and it doesn't even have to be food on the table. If you want to live a life where you can elevate where you're at, then that's enough too. So I just want you to know that you're doing a great job by making this decision, making this conscious effort for yourself, and best of luck out there. And if you have any questions at all, please comment below and I will try to get to them. And if you want to see more videos like this, please put in some requests. I'm looking for more content ideas, and I'll soon be posting some more videos and more tutorials. So let me know if you want to see any of that going forward. But thank you again for listening, and you got this. Bye now.